course, and he joins us live from Cape Town now. If we can start off and talk about the well-documented resource richness that Africa has, but it doesn't seem to be showing too much for it. Why is that, in your opinion?
I believe that the key challenge for Africa is to really find a way to create value by adding value to its resources. The challenge that the continent faces is to create products that can be globally competitive with the emergence of countries such as China and India.
What does it need to change? Is it legislation, or is it just simply attitude?
We believe that what is really critical to change is to make sure that the continent invests in what we call its higher forms of capital. And I mean by that, making sure that the institutions are there. I talk about the rule of law here. Second, it is fundamental that the knowledge and know-how to really create those products is put in place. Third, it's critical that we make sure that we train our people and the human resources are up to par. And finally, we have to really address the issue of culture or mindsets. And when we speak about culture, what we are talking about here is a belief in innovation. It is a belief in private sector development. It is making sure that the continent realizes that the only way to succeed is to embrace competition and to really support the private sector.
Now, it's all very well saying that we need to change mindsets, but in a practical sense, how do you recommend that happens?
Look, what we believe really works is to really leverage a demonstration effect. The OTF Group, in partnership with Legatum Capital, has launched what we call the Legatum Pioneers of Prosperity Africa Award. This is a program which aims to identify, reward, and promote role model entrepreneurs. What we do here is to identify local business people that are succeeding, and we make sure that we bring those as role models to other companies on the continent. Last year, we had a ceremony in Kigali held by His Excellency President Paul Kagame, where 6 of those businesses were recognized. What we are hoping to do this year is to expand the program to 10 countries throughout Africa. And we believe that if we can promote the idea that business is development through such a powerful demonstration effect, we can really create some change in mindsets.
Now, one of the obvious areas where Africa has been criticized in terms of failing is on the beneficiation level, and that has been addressed better by some countries than others. Is there a danger that there's been too much emphasis placed on the benefit of beneficiation?
I mean, I think that the real issue here is not really about the beneficiation. I think the real issue is making sure that one way or another we empower the entrepreneurs on the continent to really do the right thing. What we know works is when we have entrepreneurs that are able to create great products for which they can find customers willing to pay a high price, value gets created. Value gets created for the customers because they get a great product. Value gets created for the owners because they get a return. Value gets created for the employees because they get higher and stable wages. And finally, the community benefits the most because it can really see the impact from this entrepreneurial activity. So what we really need to see here is probably another mindset change away from issues such as beneficiation, which I might consider as peripheral, to the core of the matter, which is about business being seen as development.
We've seen the National Treasury trying to incentivize small, medium-sized enterprises through various innovative tax schemes and the like. Are they doing enough, and should the rest of Africa be following suit?
I think those initiatives are definitely a very, very good way to help SMEs. But when you actually ask those business leaders themselves what it is that they need, they tell you that they require assistance in training. They require assistance in access to finance. They need information on markets. They want to network. They want technical assistance. What we have seen work in other geographies is to make sure that there are very comprehensive business development services networks that are implemented and deployed really to support those entrepreneurs and help them address the business challenges that they face. So this is really an approach that requires both a push and a pull, And the push aspect of things has to be about making sure that those BDS services are there, while the pull includes some of the measures that you mentioned, which creates a more favorable environment for SMEs to perform.
How likely is it to happen, that change in attitude towards entrepreneurs?
Look, from what it is that we see, from the evidence that we have, we believe that it is already happening. I think a few years ago, it would have been a very risky exercise to really stand in front of a crowd such as the one yesterday at the Wharton Global Alumni Forum and speak about the fact that business is development. Yesterday, the question wasn't really about that. It was about how do we make sure that we empower entrepreneurs throughout the continent and we really help them get there. So I really believe that the change in mindset is already happening. What we need to make sure happens, though, is to really take that change to the next level. I mean by that, it's clear that at the leaders level, they understand that the private sector is key to development. What we have to make sure happens is that that mindset gets really spread throughout the societies, and people throughout government and throughout civil society and throughout the private sector itself realize what they can do to create prosperity in Africa through business.
Now, one of the recommendations that's been made to the National Treasury here in South Africa is that there should be a greater incentive in bolstering the country's tradables, and here we're talking about things like the manufacturing sector that would earn foreign currency outside of resources. What do you make of that train of thought?
Look, I really believe that there has to be a more comprehensive growth strategy than just this. At the end of the day, the name of the game is competitiveness. And what competitiveness is about, it's about productivity. It's about making sure that for every single sector, cluster, or industry where South Africa competes, the products which makes the country unique and attractive to any investor or buyers are very, very clear. And to really develop those products, what we have seen works is to really put in place some processes where you bring together the private sector, you bring together the public sector, you bring together development partners, you bring together civic society, and having all those stakeholders around the table, you create a common vision and really create a platform where they can collaboratively address the nation's challenges, win new markets, and help the private sector perform.
Eric, I believe in your presentation you said that natural resources do not necessarily indicate wealth, and that wealth needs to be redefined in order to succeed. Flesh out exactly what you mean by that and how that would contribute to some sort of solution.
Absolutely. I really believe that the empirical evidence is really very, very clear here. If natural resources were wealth, Africa would be the most developed continent by far. The truth of the matter is that those natural resources have to be considered as a ticket to the game. They have to be considered as resources that we can leverage to create the products or services that I am talking about. Having a beautiful beach alone isn't really going to help with any country's tourism strategy if that is not backed by clear investment in the right type of facilities, if it's not backed by people that are trained, if it is not backed by laws that allow people to get a visa easily, if it's not backed by standards. So it's really important that we have a very comprehensive view on how we leverage natural resources to create competitive products. A country that I believe has done this very well is the country of Rwanda, where you have seen in just about 8 years, tourism receipts grow from $8 million to $45 million last year. It is an amazing, amazing success stories where you are seeing droves of visitors coming to experience the mountain gorillas. And this is from a country where a few years ago people would have said tourism isn't even possible. I think what this tells us is that when there is a very deliberate approach to leadership, when there is really a focus on making sure that business can play its role, we can really create change and create competitive industries and products.
That was Eric Kaku. He is the Managing Director of OFT Group, live from Cape Town. As you'll see on the screen, we've just had breaking news that the petrol